Hi, friends. John Papola here. I wanted to tee up this episode of Dad Saves America because it's a little different than any that we've done in the past. And it's different because our subject is an underage girl, a girl who's 10 years old at the time of the events that she's going to talk about. And those events are that she was, I think, unfairly called a racist at her school for actions that she didn't intend to be offensive. And it was taken way beyond what you would expect, and frankly sounds a lot like the kinds of stories I think we see too much in the news already. And what I didn't want to do, and none of us here didn't want to do, is exploit an underage kid for clicks and likes and subject her to online harassment and intimidation. I think it's gross that the news media does this to kids, whether it's in the aftermath of a school shooting or some other event that's newsworthy. And so we've decided to obscure her identity both in the visuals of this show and in the conversation throughout. We don't make reference to the specific school district or city that this takes place in. And so what you're going to see is my interview with her, followed by her parents. And you might hear her a little bit during the conversation with the parents. And I hope this telling and this story will be useful to you as a parent or as a young person that might be experiencing this kind of situation, because one could say, why even draw attention to these sort of one-off stories? Isn't this just sort of buying into sensationalism? But I do think this is happening enough in our society right now that we need as parents to understand how to deal with it and to grapple with it before we're suddenly thrust into a situation where we're putting ourselves in front of the school board over things that really should have just been addressed one-to-one. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, young lady. Welcome to Dad Saves America. How old are you?
12.
You're 12. What month was your birthday?
August.
Okay, so you're halfway to 13, just about.
Or wait, yeah, I already passed halfway.
Um, you had an experience, which is why you're sitting here today.
Yeah.
And I want to hear firsthand. We're going to bring your parents in and talk about the whole thing. But I wanted to hear from you, sort of what happened, and with as much detail as you can remember. So I guess take me back to the event. It was called, like, was it
May Madness.
May Madness?
Yeah, it was almost a year ago, so it's kind of, yeah. So I get to school just kind of like normal. I go in and everyone's like there and they're just kind of talking. And some people brought like there's this one kid who brought a morph suit and you blow it up and it's just like this big black blob. And then some people brought like camo sticks. We were just supposed to wear like black or like have a black accessory on, and a lot of people were talking about bringing camo sticks. And
What's a camo stick?
well, like the stuff that football players put onto their eyes. But
Yeah.
my friend brought like camo colors, and then there was another kid who also brought just a black one. So
Well, let's take a step back.
okay.
What is this event? Is it a
It's like a field day where we just like go on the field and like do a bunch of activities.
and is it like a Friday? Is it like before the weekend starts, or what's the
Um,
is it fun? Is it something that happens every year?
it's something that happens every year. It kind of varies. I think it's been on different days every year.
Okay, so you've got this field trip day. Everybody.
It's not a field trip. It's just a field day.
Okay, field day. So
Yeah.
just feel
Yeah.
it's a day in the field
Yeah.
by the school. Okay. Um, and what are the games?
There's like volleyball. There's water slides, water blow ups, and like duck duck goose. And then there's another game where it's like you spray people with hoses and you dump water on people and just stuff like that.
So it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Before we started recording, you were saying your favorite period was
Advisory.
advisory, so not a class. I understand that. Right. So this is like a whole day of advisory outside. You don't have to do
Yeah.
no homework, no classes.
No homework.
So I understand that you were broken up into teams. Was this for like one game, or to explain the teams and colors thing
One class was one team, and everybody started choosing different colors. And I'm pretty sure we were like either the last or one of the last people to choose their team color because people kept saying like blue, pink, orange. That was like already taken by other classes in the grade. So we all just agree on black because everyone's like, well, we all have black things, and if we have to wear something black, that'll be easy.
Okay. And what was the what was that going to be for the whole day? You were going to be like team black?
Yeah.
Um okay. So then how many kids are in your team? Is it your whole
Yeah,
class,
it's
your
my
whole
whole
grade?
class. So it's about like 20 kids.
And then what happens next?
So we go to school. I'm pretty sure like the first half of the day is when kinder through second was on the field. So I still had classes, but it was like all my like fun classes like PE, which is like stuff you need to work on like reading. I think I was in reading. So that was normal. But so once like we start getting ready, it's probably an hour before we're supposed to go outside. There was a sub the entire day,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm wearing black shorts and a swimsuit, and my swimsuit got stained by all the black stuff I put on my face. So we start painting our face. So the camo stick, since it had three colors, I just went like that across my face, and it was just like camo. And I was like, well, what if I rub it in and just make it black? So I rubbed it in and made it black. And there was also another boy who did that too, but not. He brought his own stick, and it was just black. It wasn't camo. It was just black, and he just rubbed it all over his face.
Oh, so the your stick had like two different colors, like black and green, or
It was like black, green, and like gray.
okay. So you went like this.
Yeah.
Um, and then you just rubbed it on. Did you look at yourself in the mirror? Did you see what you looked like?
Not until like a teacher asked me to go in the bathroom and wipe it off. So
Okay.
I put it down my face, and I went up to one of my friends and I was like, I'm gonna go rub it in. So I just like start rubbing it in my face, and I was like, is it rubbed in? And she's like, yeah. So there's this so the substitute teacher. We stayed in our classroom the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So the substitute teacher, I keep seeing her like look at me and then look away and then look at me, and she's like on her phone, and then she like looks at me and then like just kind of looks away, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird, but like
Is this a substitute teacher that's come into your class before, or is this somebody
well,
you've never
I
met?
know who she is because she works there, but like she's never subbed. Yeah.
Okay. So so you've rubbed in this stuff on your face as part of the game.
Mhm.
Did you have any sense that what you were doing was like a problem, or like were you trying to get a rise out of people by covering your face the
No, I
whole way?
was
Why did you do that?
because it was just kind of like I was like with a bunch of my friends, and I was just like, I'm gonna rub it in, and that's all I thought about, just rubbing it in.
So just to be silly and have fun.
Yeah.
So what happens next? So you see the substitutes kind of looking at you. So
So
when she's looking at you and being weird, does a thought enter your mind like do you have a sense of why she might be looking at you, or do you not?
I was like, I don't think I really knew. I was just kind of like weirded out by it, but there was also the other boy, his face was also black, so I thought nothing of it because like his face was black too.
Okay.
So after a few minutes go by, she was like, "Can y'all come outside?" And I was like, "Okay." And we just looked at each other and we didn't really know what was happening. And she was like, "I need y'all to go wipe this off." And then I was like, okay, it's kind of hard to get off. So I brought one of my friends in the bathroom with me, and we had a really hard time getting off. So we came back in, and we were like, it's not coming off.
Hmm.
And then she brought me outside, and she said, know what I know you're not trying to be racist, but what you did, you're being a racist by doing that. And I was so confused. And she was like, what you were doing was blackface, and it was really bad back then. And I'm like, oh, sorry, because I didn't know what to say, because like I just thought I was being bad. So she was like, I'm gonna have someone take y'all down to the office, me and the other boy. So we're waiting around in the hallway just for a few minutes, and there's this lady, I think she just kind of brought us down, but she stopped in another room for like 10 minutes. And me and him were just staring at each other. And there was a fourth grader that walked by, and he was like, "What are you in the office for this time?" So, like, he goes to the office a lot.
Your
And
friend goes to the office a lot?
yeah, I've never been to the office for anything like bad, but he just looked at me and he was like, "I wonder if my parents are going to be mad." And I just knew my parents wouldn't be mad because I just thought it was kind of dumb.
So, so when the substitute took you, she took you aside from the other
Yeah,
students,
and
right?
then
Okay.
some
So
lady.
she didn't like
Mm-mm,
yell at you or anything in front
no,
of your
no.
classmates.
So
Okay.
some lady brought us down to the office, and when she said racist, I walked in the office. The lady who escorted us sat us down in the black counselor's office. And I was like, oh, well, if it's racist, she probably knows what it is, and that's just going to be super awkward. So the counselor keeps walking in and out, doesn't really say anything to me. The boy goes first, and she's just walking in and out. I'm just like sitting in the chair. She'll like maybe look at me, but she won't like talk to me or anything
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't really expect her to. So, the principal comes in and she was like, "I know what you did. You weren't trying to be racist, but you're being racist."
So when she said that, she said, "I know you weren't trying to be racist, but what you're doing is racist.
She was like, "You're being a racist."
You're being a racist
Yeah.
by having the black stuff on your face."
Yeah.
Um, did you? What were you thinking when she said that to you?
I
Because
was
she said, "I'm not. You're not trying, right?" So what? How did you? What were you thinking at that point?
I was just really confused. I was like, I had no idea what that was because like a lot of my friends just tell me I'm kind of clueless on stuff, so like I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so she was like, "Here." She gave me these baby wipes and she was like, "You have to wipe that off now." And she made me wipe off the whole thing. And
Did she do it or did you do it yourself?
so the first part, like I got most of it off and she was like, I was like, "Am I done yet? Can I go?" And she was like, "You didn't get it all off." And then she grabs her wipe and wipes the rest off. And she's like, "Okay, you can go now." And I'm like, "Am I at lunch?" And she's like, "Probably." So I go upstairs and I get my lunchbox. And a teacher sees me walking up and she's like, "Hey, do you need anything?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to find my lunchbox. Did you see anyone grab it?" And she was like, "No, but if no one grabbed it, just come back up and I'll help you look for it." So I go back downstairs and one of my friends had grabbed my lunchbox.
Okay.
So they looked at me and my face was red because it was like baby wipes.
Yeah, yeah, trying to rub
Yeah, so they
the
were like,
camo
"What
makeup off.
happened to you?" And I'm like, "I was trying to wipe it off and it's really hard." So they started making jokes about how I looked like a Teletubby. And then we just kind of ate lunch like normal and like they just kind of kept asking what happened. And a few of the boys came up to me and they're like, "Is that the same thing what happened to him?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So they're like, "Oh, okay." Then they just kind of walk away and start like just talking about whatever. And all my friends are like just kind of keep asking me what happens and I'm like just like I tell them kind of like just the rundown. And then these like really mean girls that don't like me, they're like attention seekers, they're like popular, I guess. So they come up to me and they're like, what happened?" And I'm like, I went to the principal's office and I just kind of told them and they're like, "Oh, that's so stupid." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then the principal walks in the cafeteria, and I wasn't paying attention to see if it was other tables, because other tables had team colors and they painted their face.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask this. So were there other kids with like similar amount of color on their face?
Yeah, like there was a blue team. Their face was entirely blue. It was just all blue. And yeah, so the principal comes in and I think someone else, they start handing wipes to our table. I wasn't paying attention to see if it was the other table, but I just remember it was ours. And she was like, "Everyone, if you have any black under your face, besides under your eyes, you need to wipe it off." And my friend was like, well, she had her initials on her cheeks. And she was
Yep.
like, can I keep this? And she's like, they're like, nope. And she's like, why? It's just my initials. And she's like, you just can't have that. So she wipes it off and she's like, and like she kind of knows why because I told everyone kind of like in my, like the people I was sitting with.
Yep.
And so, yeah. And then everybody had stuff on their arms and their legs. I had a monkey on my leg because that was what people knew me for. His name was Timmy, just the monkey. And that was the best monkey ever. So, so I had the monkey on my leg, and I'm like, do I have to wipe this off? And they're like, no, because it was a brown monkey. So,
So then what happens next?
we just go outside, and field day happens like normal.
So the rest of the day goes by as pretty much like normal.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? So you go home at the end of the day.
I go home, I get in the car, I tell my mom what happened, and she like looked shocked, and I'm like, "Are you mad at me?" Because I was kind of confused why she would be mad at me, because like I kind of knew, like if I told her what like really happened, like she wouldn't get mad. And then she called my dad, and my dad was pretty angry
Why do you think they were angry?
because they know I'm not a racist, and like I like they know I wouldn't do something like to like intentionally hurt someone.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I like bully my friends, it's like just like a joke. It's like, "Hey dummy," or like something dumb like that. But it's not like I'd actually like try and bully someone like that badly.
Did any of your classmates complain to anyone about the black ink on your face or on anybody else's face?
Mm-mm.
So I understand that later on you have to, your class gets in a little bit of trouble. Is
Yeah.
that right?
So I wasn't there on Monday, and I don't think the actual teacher was there either. But on Tuesday, I came back, and the teacher sits us down, and she was like, I know some of you didn't know what you were doing. And then she looks at me and the guy's general direction, and I was kind of sitting like, it was like me, my friend, and then the other guy. And so we were kind of close together. And she was like, and then she looked kind of over at us and she's like, some of you knew exactly what you were doing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This is the substitute that said this? Who
Oh,
said
it
this?
was the teacher.
So your main teacher.
Oh, I forgot a part about the principal. She made me look in a mirror after and rehearse an apology to the white substitute because I was being a racist.
Okay, let's focus on that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big, that's a missing piece of the story.
Yeah.
Okay, so to take a step back to, you're in the principal's office.
So I'm in the principal's office. I wipe my face off, and I'm like, "Can I go now?" And I look in the mirror, and she's like, "You need to apologize to the substitute."
Did she explain why you need to apologize?
No, she was just like, "So what are you gonna say?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry." And she's like, "I'm sorry for what?" And then and then I said, "I'm sorry for being a racist." And then she made me say it one more time, and I got to go. And as I was walking back up, I saw the substitute, and she kind of looked sad or something, and she was with the black counselor, and she was like kind of just like, I couldn't tell if she was crying or not, but it kind of looked like she did. I saw her. I get on the other side of the hallway, and I don't apologize to her because I kind of knew I didn't do anything wrong. Like,
When she said, when your principal said that, had you repeat that? What were you? Did that feel? How did that make you feel?
I was like, why do I like wasn't sure why I had to apologize for something that I knew like was an accident, and like I never really knew what it meant.
Um, and she said that she knew that you weren't trying to do something.
But then she called me a racist. So that was kind of confusing.
When you're so let's come back now to it's Tuesday, and your teacher's back, and she's saying some of you were knew what you were doing. But what did she mean by that? Were there other problems going on
Mm,
that like she
not
was
that
referring to?
not that anyone else knew of. Like Our actual teacher never like actually said anyone's name, said the problem, but everyone in the room could always tell how like passive aggressive she was being because she would always look at me or him.
And then what happened next?
I went to my first two periods, science, math, and then I go back and she's my homeroom for reading and social studies. And we go back and she was like, y'all are gonna have to write apologies to her. So I like wrote in my apology, I'm sorry for being a racist, because that's all that really came to mind. Didn't really know what else I had to apologize for.
Who else had to write apologies?
Everyone in the class. And before that, me and my friend were talking, and because my parents told me if she makes you write an apology, don't write it. And me and my friend were talking, and I told my friend my parents don't want me to write an apology if we have to. And we were kind of like whispering, and she was like, do you think something is funny? And I'm like, no. And she's like, then why are you laughing? I'm like, I wasn't laughing. And then she's like, okay. And then she keeps talking. She like starts glaring at me because you can, on our school iPads, you can email like anyone, and like as long as you know their email address, you can email them. And I was kind of like staring at my iPad a little bit. I was about to like email my mom after we wrote the letters, and she takes my iPad. She just like takes it. And I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. She just like took my iPad, and I looked at her, and I was like so confused, and she was like she just kind of glared at me. So I write the apology. I hand it to her, and she was like, "Can I was like, "Can I have my iPad back?" And she was like, "Once we start doing something on our iPads, you can." And
Okay.
if we were doing something on our iPads, she there's this thing, it's like you can turn it on, and you can look at like any student's iPad. So I knew she would like take it away if I tried to email my mom after I like thought about that a little bit.
Um, have you gotten into trouble with this teacher before? Like, why do you think
She
she?
doesn't like me. She just never has from the beginning of the year. Like everybody, like people at their dinner table would talk about it.
What do you mean by that?
So I go to my friend's house on the last day of school, and her mom's like, "I'm so sorry about how mean that teacher is. My daughter's always telling me about it when we're eating dinner." And I'm like, "You talk about me at your dinner table?"
Um, okay, so when you first that day, that field day, you got in your mom and your mom's car, and you went home, and your parents were not happy. Did they? I guess a weekend went by, right? Because you said then you were back in school for Tuesday. Did your parents do anything, or they just were upset about it? And
I think they like texted some of their friends and asked for advice, but no one ever told them from the school. No one was like, "Hey, like she went to the principal's office." And like they thought that was kind of weird, so they waited it out.
okay,
And it's kind of weird that they can't email my parents that I went to the principal's office, but I forgot to do my homework and they're going to email them.
yeah. So that's interesting. So they didn't really get notified, and then you come back, and what did other people? Do you know what anybody else wrote on their apologies out of in your class?
I didn't ask because I thought that would be a little bit weird.
And then what happened? Did anything else happen after that? I'm going to talk to your parents about sort of what followed, that where they get involved. But
Um, Not really, but some people did ask me if like what I wrote on it, and I just said um sorry for being a racist, and they were like, but you weren't being racist. And I'm like, I know, I just didn't know what else to say.
so, is this a conversation that happens in school about racism?
Not anymore. No one like really talks about it. But a couple of days ago, the guy who also was like accused of being a racist, like I was like someone was talking about their field day at their school, and and then he looked over at me and he's like, "Hey, do you remember what happened to us?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I do."
um, how do you like your school overall,
um
aside from this incident?
The middle school is fine. Like all the teachers are fine. None of them are like mean to me. My homeroom teacher was.
Um, yeah, so you're in sixth grade now, so you're in middle school.
Yeah.
So so last year that was like was it a different like campus? Like did you change
Mhm.
buildings and
Yeah.
stuff?
Like the whole campus is different. It's like 10 minutes away.
Okay, so it's kind of like a totally different school.
Yeah.
Um, do you like school in general?
I like my friends. My teachers are fine. I don't like doing work. It's just like hard.
What's your favorite thing to do inside or out of school? You said before we got started, you said you'd done gymnastics and dance. What's your favorite thing to do?
Um, Used to be gymnastics, now probably just like dance and like hanging out with my friends.
Um, so your parents, um, after you had to write the apology, things happened, things kept happening, right? So what happens next?
I can't really remember if anything else happened, but I remember at home they hired the attorney to like file the grievances and stuff. And the first grievance was kind of filed um, like a few days before the last day of school. So every time I walked in that classroom or every time the principal saw me, they knew that my parents knew. And on the last day of school, when we like graduated from fifth grade, um, like like my principal like handed me a little thing, and I just looked her right in the eyes. My dad has a picture of it.
Um, I understand that your parents wanted an apology. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and
Did you want an apology?
yeah, I kind of wanted them to say sorry because it kind of made me feel a little bit bad when they called me a racist because I knew what racism was. I didn't know what blackface was.
And something else happens, right? So you did you have to go before like a board in like a public room? What happened there?
So a few of my friends came. The one who brought the camo stick, the one who I was talking to, that like she was like, "Don't write the letter. Your parents don't want you to." And then just another friend that was kind of like just there for it. And they went up, and we brought all of them. Some of their parents came, and the board. So like the attorney spoke in front of the board, and they voted 7-0 against me. But the superintendent was there too, and like all of my friends like kind of like tapped my shoulder, and they're like, "He's about to cry." And
Really?
I couldn't like his eyes were getting really watery, and I was like, can't tell if he wants me to win or lose.
What did you have to speak in front of the group?
No, but one of the school board members, she was like, "I like your dress," and it was kind of weird. And then I was like, "Oh, thanks," because it's not like I'm gonna be silent, because that would be kind of mean.
Yeah. Are you so this happened last fall. Are you sick of talking about this?
Um, it's just kind of like gets brought up sometimes when I don't want it to.
Um, why do you want to? I understand that you wanted to sit and talk about it and tell your story. Why not just say, ah, it was a stupid thing that happened in the past? Why do you want people to know that this happened to you?
Probably because there's been like two other kids like on the news that it happened to, and if it's happened to three people so far, then it will probably happen to more, and it would be better if like it didn't.
Was there a better way they could have handled it for you, do you think?
They probably could have like emailed my mom and told them like what had happened, and maybe be like, "I just emailed your mom. She might talk to you about something tonight. I just wanted to tell you."
So just communicate more.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd want people to know about your experience?
No.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. I'm going to have your parents come in and we're going to talk a little more about their experience of it, but I really appreciate you sitting down. I know it's weird to sit and talk about yourself with cameras all around. That's always kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you're very brave to do that. And I hope my son called middle school The Hunger Games. I hope your middle school experience is better than that.
People just call it prison.
Do you think it's prison?
A little bit. There's really big doors, and they have us in this huge building, and they won't let us leave.
All right, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Kelly, Jay, welcome to Dad Saves America.
Thanks for having us.
So I just spent some time with your daughter, who's precocious and adorable. She told her story. And, some of that story was pretty innocuous and some of it was pretty uncomfortable. So I want to first start off with just your experience of it and sort of recount in real time a little bit. So she gets in your car, Kelly, and what happens that day? She gets in your car. What does she say? What happens?
So normally how we pick the kids up, there's like a drive-through line. And so kids are not just jumping in cars on a typical day. So I was kind of slowly going through that car rider line, looking for my girls kind of up the front. And I always unlock the doors so that the teachers can open them really fast. And all of a sudden, the door opened and I looked over and it was her. And she threw her backpack in the car in the front seat. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I just walked up from the field. We just got dismissed." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I got sent to the principal's office today. Apparently I'm racist." And I don't know what my face looked like, but in those like seconds of processing what she said, I must have made like kind of a shocked face. And I went, "Are you kidding me?" And she said, "Oh, okay. I thought your face looked like you were going to be mad at me." And I said, "What? No." And so at that point, her first grade sibling gets in the car. And this little friend is high on life from track and field day. She is wanting to talk about it. And it's like, I'm having to drive us home. And there's all these thoughts going on in my mind. And I looked at in the front seat. I said, "Hey, let's table this till we get to the house. Like, let's just wait."
Yeah.
And so we kind of both just sat there. It's about a 8-minute drive home. And the little one in the back seat is chattering about what an awesome day she had. And we get inside and I looked at her and I said, "Okay, you need to go upstairs and take a shower. You're super sweaty. I'll call you when you can come back down. I need to have a few minutes alone with sis." And she was like, "Okay." So she goes on her way. And I sat our daughter down and I said, "Tell me exactly what happened." And she said that basically there was a substitute that day and their team color, each of the classes in all of the grades had a team color. So our youngest had gone to school, her team color was orange. And for our oldest, it was black. And I had remembered her saying she was frustrated because she wanted blue or gray. But the other kids outvoted her and it was black. So she goes to school that Friday wearing all black. There's a substitute when she gets there. And at some point before lunch, they're all getting ready to go. And one of her friends, another little girl, pulls out these 2 camo sticks. And I had eventually ended up getting a picture of them from the father that sent them. So I could see exactly what we were talking about. But it's one of those HME camo sticks. It's black, brown, and army green.
Okay.
And so everybody's, doing things on their bodies and they're all getting colored up. And she and another little boy, I guess, drew stripes on their face. And then she looked over and the other little boy was kind of smearing it in. And so she started as well. And she said that she noticed that the substitute was kind of afar but staring. And she just kind of kept doing her thing. And so she gets pulled out in the hallway and the substitute said, "Listen, I know you're not trying to be racist, but what you're doing is racist. And you need to wipe this off." So she sends our daughter and the other boy in question to the bathroom. Well, it's elementary school. So it's like single ply toilet paper. And when you have that kind of sticky face paint,
that's gonna
nothing is happening. If anything, it's getting smeared around and made worse. So they come back out and they go to the sub and they're like, "We can't get it off." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to call the office and have somebody come get you." So some adult, it was some woman from the office, comes and gets them, takes them down, and seats them down in the counselor's office. So at this point, they're both kind of looking at each other.
Well, and if I'll stop you just because she did such a good job of laying out her experience of what happened. I actually want to jump from the conversation you had at night to the next moment of what you like let's like keep it through your
Through our eyes.
through your
Okay,
eyes, because
okay.
we got her whole
Yeah.
experience kind
Yeah.
of firsthand. So she comes home.
She comes home.
Yeah, you have this conversation with her, or where she
Yeah, so
explains
she's
everything.
explaining it, and basically I asked her, I said, she looked at me and she goes, I don't even know what blackface is. What does that mean? And at that point, I'm sort of shell-shocked, and I said, okay, you're hot and sweaty. Now I need you to go upstairs and take a shower. Give me 15 minutes. Let me call Dad, and then let me regroup with you. And I said, I know what blackface means, but I want to make sure I explain it clearly in a way that you will understand it. So she goes upstairs to take a shower. I called Jay, and I'm like, I'm just stunned. And I said, when are you coming home? So she comes back downstairs after taking a shower, and I sat her down and I said, you know how we're watching Little House on the Prairie? And that takes place in the 1800s. And she said, yeah. And I said, back then, there was something called blackface, and it was minstrels. It was white people who were portraying black people on a stage. They were performing, and they would color their face with, things that made it dark. And I said, that is what blackface is. And I said, now in the year that we are living in, everyone, for the most part, is aware that that is hurtful, it is inappropriate, and it is not something that you want to do.
Did you explain that it was sort of mocking as part
Yeah,
of it?
I said it is hurtful to African American people that it ever even happened, and it is hurtful now that people continue to do it. And I said there are some famous people, actors, actresses, TV comedians, that it's actually come to light that in their pasts they have maybe gone to a Halloween party or performed and colored their faces, and it's very well known that that is a no-no. You don't do that. And I said, have they talked to you about that at school? And she said, no, I didn't even know what this was. And I said, did they tell you what it was today? And she said, no. And so the way that we have always approached certain things is as they come up, we explain them in the moment. If a question is asked, we explain it in the moment. And so far, I don't think at home we had seen anything that she had been exposed to at 11 years old that was like, we needed to address this as blackface. And so I think for her, just the word racist or this is being racist was shattering to her. So Jay gets home that night, and I'm checking my phone over and over again for a phone call from the principal, for an email from the principal. I'm waiting. Like, our kids have been sent to the office if they've been sick, or if maybe they're getting like an award. But in 18 years of parenting, we had not had a kid sent to the office for anything like this. And I'm a former teacher. I taught, in our public school system. And so I was used to, if anyone from my class got sent to the principal, this was huge. Like, you're addressing it, you're checking in with the counselor or the principal who's calling mom and dad. So I'm waiting.
Yeah. And Jay, so you get this call. What goes through your head?
So, yeah.
And do you keep your cool, or do you do what a lot of us do, which is lose it a little?
No, I almost drove off the road. So the first thing I heard was racist and my daughter in the same sentence. And then Kelly continued to tell me about what actually happened. And that's when I went from kind of horrified and have I done something wrong as a parent to not help teach her about this, to just absolute outright anger. And I was horrified that this conversation would happen with our daughter without one of us being there, and that they didn't actually call us to to tell us exactly what happened. And so I got very angry.
She wasn't remembering what day exactly of the week.
It was
this
on a
happened.
Friday.
So it was on a Friday.
It was on
so,
a Friday. It was
so-
about 3 weeks before school got out. It was a Friday. And, you know, I don't know if she talked about this, but when she got in the car, her face was real red and blotchy. And I remember looking and thinking, I put sunscreen on them. Why is she so red and blotchy? And then as she was relaying the story of, you know, having the wipes and she had to wipe her face, and then the principal said it wasn't enough, so the principal took the wipe and wiped her face for her. And then she went down to the cafeteria, and apparently when she went into the cafeteria, all of her friends at the table were sort of like, whoa, tomato, whoa, Teletubby. That was upsetting to me because since she was in preschool, she's had a bottle of Benadryl in the nurse's office. She has a sensitivity to bee stings, to certain chemicals touching her skin. You know, so if her face was that red and bright and no one sent her by the nurse's office just to kind of have the nurse check on it, that was irritating and frustrating to me. And so that was kind of Friday night. We're just processing all of this. I think we were calling my parents. We were calling a few other parents that were close within the district. We're trying to kind of get our bearings. This seems crazy. This seems awful. Are we crazy? Did this, you know? So Saturday, we tried to just kind of keep it low key. I'm still checking my phone. Nothing, no communication.
Mhm.
Sunday, I'm keeping it. And I'm starting to have this feeling where I'm looking at Jay and I'm like, I can't send her back. I can't send her back on Monday. Nobody's contacted us. This feels wrong. And I had a couple of friends remind me that we know a former TEA attorney and call him. And so
Why would you want to call an attorney? I know this is like it's an upsetting thing to have your kid called a racist. It's really, I mean, it's like the worst thing you can be called now, right? So, but
So
why did you feel like that would be the thing to do at that stage?
because at this stage, there were lots of things that we were aware of in our district that were happening with kids and were going under the radar. And, you know, at one point, Jay had run for the school board, and we had been hearing a lot of stories where it was like,
Yeah.
kids weren't telling parents till months after certain things happened, and it was just becoming more regular. And at that point, I think that when you're looking at your 11-year-old daughter who just wanted to go to track and field day, I was like, how am I going to send her back? And I need someone to help me understand if what happened is as inappropriate as it feels, or if we need a little bit of a wake-up call. So I was kind of wanting someone more official than our, you know, protective family and friends to help me understand this really is bad. This was not right.
Fair enough.
And I think I was a serial offender growing up to where I found myself in the principal's office all the time. And when I was in the principal's office, I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, the anxiety I felt over the principal ultimately calling my parents, because that is what happened all the time.
Yeah.
I just thought, okay, that's what happens. And I just was, I think we were a little bit shocked over the idea that why is the principal, if this was such a big deal to them to let her know that she was being racist, why didn't they call us?
Yeah. So, and it wasn't just some random attorney. It was a former TEA attorney. He knows about all of the Texas education codes and laws and what is allowed and what isn't. And so I was wanting to get an understanding from someone who kind of was an expert on what is allowed and what isn't to do to children in our public school system in Texas. And I emailed him Sunday night and just said, if you have any time to chat on Monday, I'd love to be able to kind of share something with you and get your opinion. And so I kept her home from school on Monday because I wanted to visit with him first.
Yeah.
And we ended up having about an hour and a half long phone call. He felt like, oh yeah, this is a problem. I've been wondering when something like this was going to come up from other chatter that I've been hearing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he was kind of like, I've been waiting for something like this to come to light. And basically, we hung up the phone, and I said, I don't think we're ready to do anything at this point. He explained to me in our public school district that there's a process. You don't go hire an attorney and go sue people. You go through an administrative process, which is 3 levels of grievances. And the first level, you address it with your principal. If that's not resolved, you go to level 2, that's addressed with either your superintendent or assistant superintendent. If that's not resolved, you go to level 3 to the board. And he said, I can help you with all of those documents because they do get a little hairy and there's 10-day deadlines and it can be a little overwhelming. And I said, okay, thank you. Let me go back and visit with my husband. I think we're going to send her back to school tomorrow. We're going to watch how this plays out.
Mm-hmm.
So we send her back on Tuesday. And when she goes back, her homeroom teacher is there. And this is kind of what started to blow my mind a little bit, is that the homeroom teacher missed out on everything that Friday. We were not upset with the homeroom teacher.
Yeah, and your daughter was saying that she was given some sort of like implied looks and a couple snide things that were said, and then she was made to write an apology.
Yes, and throughout the year, like I had gone to the homeroom teacher at our 6-week conference in the fall, and I had said that our daughter felt maybe she was getting in trouble more often than some of the other kids, and she wasn't sure if she liked her. And I said, is there anything that we can do as parents to address that? We're on board to help. And she said, oh, I love her. She's great. She reminds me of me. These things kind of kept happening to where by the holiday party in December, I was one of the holiday party moms. And I went back to her again and I said, hey, I just wanted to check in again. Our daughter is still feeling a little bit like singled out, and like there's maybe some underlying issue that she doesn't understand. Oh, I think she's great. Don't worry about it. She's doing so well. So
This is kind of your classic school teacher stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like we've all had that,
Yeah.
where there's
Yeah.
a teacher that...
And I had sat our daughter down at one point and said, listen, part of going to school is you're not always going to have your favorite teacher every year. This is part of learning how other people work. Some teachers, want more respect. Other teachers are more laid back. You just kind of have to work with what you've got. And it's a lesson for when you get out into the world as an adult. Work with what you got. You don't always get to pick who you work with. And so Tuesday, she goes back. There's kind of a broad generalized statement of, you all know what you did. I'm very upset with your behavior. And so our daughter comes back that night and tells me, and I'm thinking, okay, like that's not that big of a deal. Like,
Yeah.
And I told Jay, I said, okay, it was kind of vague, but our daughter and the other boy felt like she was staring in their direction. So of course, all the kids, like 5th graders do at lunch and on the recess playground, want to talk about it. And we had instructed our daughter very clearly, you don't speak to anybody about it. You let them know your parents have said right now this is off topic. And if any adult wants you to talk about it, write anything down, you ask to go to the office and call us.
Okay.
So Tuesday, we're done. She's
Yep.
home. I'm feeling like we're still upset, but we're home, So Wednesday, she goes off to school. I pick her up that afternoon, and she gets in the car and she says, the whole class had to write an apology letter. And I said, okay, so tell me about that. And she basically said that at some point the teacher said, I know not everyone was trying to be racist, but I know that some people knew exactly what they were doing. You have caused this substitute teacher to be emotionally harmed. She doesn't want to teach 5th grade again. And everyone needs to write an apology letter. And so she starts passing out the letters, and our daughter and her friend, who we had spoken to the parents at that point.
Yeah.
We had multiple parent phone calls,
Mm-hmm.
and lots of parents were upset from what their children were telling them at the dinner table, and what can we do? And I said, please have your kids support our kid in class. And so I think one of that other family's kids was trying to support our daughter in that moment. She knew that we did not want her to write anything down. And she apparently was mouthing to her, call your mom, don't do it. And when the teacher saw that interaction, she said our daughter's name and said, do you think this is funny? And our daughter basically said no. She passed out the papers. In this school at the time, our daughter doesn't have any phone or iPhone watch in 5th grade. The only way you can communicate kind of with the outside world is on your school issued iPad. And she's telling me that her hand is reaching forward to get her iPad to try and communicate with me, and the teacher takes her iPad, and it's the only iPad that's confiscated.
So, she's had to write this apology. She said, that she wrote, "I'm sorry for being a racist" on her apology, which I understand that, the teacher wasn't able to provide these after the fact. Is that?
No. So school pickup is $250. She's telling me this. I shoot off an email probably between 4 and 4:30 on Wednesday afternoon saying, Mrs. So-and-so, please provide me with the apology letter that our daughter wrote today. And so I hear nothing for the rest of the day. I check my email the following day, Thursday, around 10:30, and the response from the teacher is, I'm so sorry, I don't have those letters in my possession anymore. Is there anything else I can help you with?
So, Jay, you ran for school board. So I understand we've all heard about this, right? Because school's been in the news like crazy for a long time. We talk about this all the time because I'm a big critic of schools, so I'm completely biased in this kind of thing. I kind of feel like traditional school's a giant prison.
Yes.
So when your daughter said that, I was like, I'm sure I had a big grin on my face. It's like, yeah, you're right about that. But why would you do that?
There was a lot of negative energy going around the district at that time.
And just to be clear, this was before
a full year before. And so there was a lot of negative energy where this school district made the national news for theoretically a teacher or a parent slapping a teacher that actually never happened. And it got blown way out of proportion. The school district never apologized to this parent. And so I looked at it and said, okay, well, there are two things going on here. There's a lot of animosity going between the parents and the teachers and the administration, even in the parents and the parents. And I'm somebody who I negotiate things for a living. I raise money for a living. And I thought, okay, here's an opportunity where I can actually help potentially ease the tensions that are going on. And that's the type of person I am. And then secondly, I might be actually able to help. There is not one person on the school board who actually has a business background. Or actually signs the front of a check. There are some business operators, but nobody working in a strategic position. And so I thought, okay, I can help, whether it's raising money or whether it's coming up with good strategic ideas to possibly even help for teacher housing or something like that in the district and how to do it. So I ran for school board with that idea, and I specifically wanted to keep any sort of politics, blue or red, out of my campaign. And so my goal was to really try to kind of run on the idea that, hey, we have this $2.5 million deficit every year within the school district, and I think I can help plug that gap in a very meaningful way.
And you lost?
I lost. So I think people probably figured this out. I personally will lean a little bit more to the right than to the left. This was a district that, 68% of the district voted for Beto, or Beto, or whatever his name is.
So was there any part of this experience for you both did you feel like was a little colored by some of that? So you're obviously
100%.
active. You're active in the district.
Yep.
You to the point of running for school board.
Yep.
that means you're like by definition, you're sensitive to problems.
Right.
Yes.
So were you just being oversensitive to this problem? Was it just like, was it kind of like the straw that breaks the camel's back? I don't want to minimize it, but I do want to understand why we would be sitting here now.
I think it's
over this.
interesting how you're saying this, and I bet we might have a different answer, like from your perspective as a dad and mine as a mom. When Jay ran for school board and did not win, I can say that it felt like we had had targets on our back for a very long time. Running for the school board is not just putting signs up and going and buying people, food at your local restaurant. I mean, we had people attacking our children, attacking us personally.
When you say attacking, what do you mean?
We had a friend, one of the meetings that Jay went to, one of the public school board meetings, right after Jay had announced that he was going to run. I had a friend that was sitting at that board meeting, and she texted me a picture of someone, and she said, "Do you know who this person is?" And I said, "Yes, I know who that person is." And she said, "This person, I'm sitting directly behind them," and they just leaned over to their child and said, "That's Jay. He's running for school board. His oldest goes to the high school. I want you to find out everything you can find out about him." So there were
to the child.
To the child.
Yeah.
Like,
To the
okay,
child.
you're gonna be my.
Which that became its own issue at some point during the campaign, and our oldest went up to this other person and said, "Look, we don't even really know each other. This is an adult thing. Like, I have no beef with you. I don't even know how you could have beef with me. I've never even seen you till the last few months. Like, let's let this go." And it was over. But it was definitely, there were things like that happening.
I've heard other stories about
Yeah.
the brutal school board battles, and then people who win as sort of alternate reform voices, and it just gets worse from there. That then
Yeah.
it's really now we really need to like destroy your life and run you out of town in Texas.
Right.
And I think
It's-
that when this happened with our daughter, it was exactly a year from, because you find out the results in May. This happened in May. I felt like from my perspective as a mom, Jay was able to move on from that campaign very quickly. He's very busy at work. He's very involved in lots of things. And so he rebounded very quickly. And he also is much more of a, I kind of don't care what anybody thinks. I do what I want to do, what I think is right, I'm going. But I had kept my head down pretty much for a year. I was like thinking more of, okay, this got ugly. I felt very emotionally upset by a lot of it, and that's not good for my husband and I's relationship. It's not good for my children and I's relationship. I had kept my head down. I knew on this particular campus there were a lot of people that did not like or want him to be on the school board. So I thought, I'm going to really just kind of back off a lot and just kind of let the kids be kids, only show up when I need to show up, give everybody a wide berth to sort of heal, myself included. And so then when this happened, it felt like, I remember looking at him and I said, I've stayed out of everybody's way all year. I've tried to not like have you or I be a burden on these 3 kids. And no matter what we do, we are still, in a way, it just felt like we caused that. And for no one to call us on that campus and to reach out and say, hey, this happened, let's just want to touch base, it was a lot.
So to come back to this now, so this has now happened. You talked to somebody, an attorney, for fresh perspective that isn't going to be like outraged because of friends and family.
Right.
Which is reasonable. And it's enough of a big deal for the school, or at least it seems like it is, that there's apology letters getting written, and then what happens next? You reach out to the principal. I mean, I know you've been told, there's this bureaucratic process because public school is all about how many non-teachers can we stuff in a building full of kids before there's more people than kids.
So
what do you do next?
I did not reach out to the principal. This was our daughter's end of her 5th grade year. At the beginning of 4th grade, the principal and I had already kind of butt heads a little bit over masks. And there was a day where about 50 kids came to school.
I know some people will be like, fighting over masks. Of course, one would think, I'm sorry to digress, but one would think that we learned that was kind of silly and horribly dangerous for kids' development to cover their faces. But it's still like a big triggering thing for some people.
It is, and
Which is bizarre.
What was happening was at that point, Governor Abbott had said, no masks, no masks in schools. Our district was like, you wear that mask. And so out of our 3 children at this stage, we've got a kinder, a 4th, and an 11th grader. And I basically said to the kids, I want you to do what you feel comfortable doing. You want to wear it? Great. You don't want to wear it? Okay, we back you. And there's about 50 to 60 kids at every single campus that aren't going to wear them either, but you do you. Yep. So with our kinder, she's so little, she's like, I'm wearing my mask. And I'm like, that's great. You don't want kindergarten to be like a weird first year. And I'm like, great, do it. I'm thinking like, it's only going to be a few weeks. If this is the only place she's wearing it, but this is how she's comfortable on campus. Like, let's let her have a good experience. So great, wear it. So then our high schooler figured out, he was like, all I have to do is carry around a bag of breakfast tacos to every single class. And as soon as the teacher gives me side eye, I take a bite of a breakfast taco. And then it's over. And so I'm like,
wait,
okay.
I don't understand this breakfast taco strategy.
He was like, you don't have to wear a mask
if
in
you're
class
eating?
if you're eating.
So he was constantly eating.
He was
What
constantly.
is this getting to eat in class deal? This is
high school, I guess. But, this was.
I went to 12 years of Catholic school, so that was not going down.
Yeah.
So then with our middle kiddo, our daughter, our oldest daughter, she basically said, I cannot wear them. I can't focus. I'm distracted. It makes me feel claustrophobic and get sick to my stomach. So I said, okay, don't. So for the first few days, there were probably 50 parents that were meeting all at the same time. All these kids are getting walked in together, and they're all put in ISS, in school suspension, and they're all grouped together in this room, and they have to stay in this room without their masks on, and that's how it's going. And every morning during the school day, while they're isolated in the cafeteria, the principal is coming on, and she's having these broadcast messages. Kindness is wearing a mask. Wear your mask to be kind. So we go into the 3rd day, and
full Orwell. It's just full Orwell.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. It's its own version of bullying, and allowing other kids to go off.
In a very monotone voice, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
And you want to know what's crazy is one of the kids on that school issued iPad voice recorded that and then emailed it out to their family. So that is a fact. We have that voice recorded email. So I miss this group text where everybody has figured out the way to be allowed back in class without a mask is to print out this nurse's note that says you have a doctor's excuse and you have 2 weeks to get it there. So I didn't know that. And we get up to school and she is the only one without a mask that does not have the note. And I have an appointment. I cannot run home. No one at the office will print it out for me. And I looked at her, and the principal is looking at her, and she said, if you don't put on your mask and go into class, you're going to have to spend the whole day with just me alone. And our daughter goes, okay, cool.
Not a punishment.
Yeah, not a punishment.
Yeah.
A friend of mine's an economist. He's written this book, The Case Against Education, and he said one of the ways you can tell that education's weird is that the buyers of it celebrate when they don't have to consume the product. So it's like snow days, everyone's super excited. Yeah. All the way up through college, the teacher didn't show up. Yeah. Of course, they're not really the buyers. We're the buyers, but it's always funny. It's like if I ordered an iPhone and it doesn't show up, I'm not excited about it.
Yeah.
Right. If my teacher doesn't show up, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
Okay, so like a lot of us had, you have this COVID mask nonsense conflict, and the teacher world all got on board with nonsense. And there's many of us as parents who were like, well, no, that's silly and it doesn't make any sense. And I think didn't Fauci say masks don't work like right at the start of this whole thing? So
Yeah.
what's true, what's false? I don't know. That's backdrop now. And it's May. She's about to be leaving the school. So she's fifth heading into middle school.
Yeah.
So she's going to leave campus.
She's leaving campus anyway. We've got fifth grade talent show that she's opening for. We've got fifth grade graduation, and we filed this grievance. And I asked her the day before school got out. I said, "Hey, how was rehearsal for graduation?" And she said, "It was fine. I kept my head down the whole time and didn't look at any of the grown-ups in the eye." And I looked at her, and Jay looked at her, and we were like, "No, ma'am. No, you're allowed to look at the grown-ups in the eye. You go up there and you shake their hand and you look them in the eye. Like, no, that's not how we're going out."
I want to linger on this moment because she's about to leave. So why even bother? Like that's my thing. I want to understand.
Yeah.
There seems like there's two paths you could take here. Well, there's three. There's like, you know what? There's a bunch of lunatics doing nonsense,
Yeah.
oversensitive stuff. You know, you go on the school's website, you see all kinds of DEI stuff. I've got some of it in my notes here, which we can get to perhaps. But all right, they want to be hypersensitive. That's fine. We're on our way out. It's May.
Yeah.
So you could just let this be water under the bridge and, you know, hey, you're going to encounter nonsense. It's called like HR when you get a job out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Another route is I've had my beef with this principal, but we're adults and I'm going to go and talk one-on-one with this person, human to human, and try to understand like what's the deal here. And I realize my daughter's leaving, but you know, just so you know, like this isn't a great way to handle this kind of situation. Like, but you didn't do that, right?
Well, and even though our daughter was leaving, you have to remember we had another one right there.
Right.
So like this is our public school, and it's not just that this fifth grader is leaving. Well, now we've got a little first grader that's coming up that's going to be in second grade. You know, and I think you're right. I remember one of the things I said to Jay was I was like, it's 3 weeks before school gets out. Can't we just get out of here? I think not only are all people in the school district exhausted by the end of May, the kids are exhausted, the parents are exhausted.
Everybody's ready
for
the summer.
This isn't something that, for me personally, I was like all excited to do. If anything, I was like, why?
So why not before filing some paperwork that starts the bureaucratic machine? Why not talk to the principal?
Because going back to that masking story, at some point, the kids were allowed back into the classroom because the governor's order stood. And so, you know, the majority of the kids were still wearing masks, but the kids that were unmasked were allowed back in. And those kindness is wearing masks broadcasts kept going every single day. And there were lots of kids that were coming up to our daughter, and she wasn't the only one not wearing a mask in the classroom. But they were like, you need to wear a mask. You're not being kind. It was becoming this whole thing. And I emailed the principal and I said, hey, look, I would think you would want to be aware of this. Everybody's feelings are important at this stage. Like, this is a problem. I don't even, my daughter doesn't even know who 3 of these kids are because they've been masked up for so many weeks. She can't figure out their name and their face. And I mean, like, for some people, it was hard to kind of recognize people. And so, you know, her response was, when she emailed me back, I went and talked to her and everything is fine. She said she's not bothered at all and none of these kids are bothering her. And when I went to our daughter and I said, what happened? She goes, I just want this to be over. I don't want to deal with this, you know? And I said, because it's not happening. And she said, because I just don't want anybody talking to me at school. I want to just like move on.
At some point when you bring up the when nothing happens by going to the principal to go get something resolved, the only other logical thing to do is look at an alternative. So we were actually trying to see if we could get another result. And again, she went to the principal's office. Why didn't they call us? Like, all you had to do is give us a call and tell us what happened and like walk us through this thing. And so we had, I think that, there was possibly some Pavlovian response that we said, okay, let's not continue to go down this road and beat our head up against the wall. So,
And I think that when it was explained to me, when you file your first level 1 grievance, that is you and the principal. And so, at that point, it was like, let's file this grievance and we're going to be able to sit down with the principal and maybe have a mediator here with us that will be able to help us move forward and make us feel like, okay, this is resolved. We're going to be great with our youngest staying here. We're all having a much more clear understanding. And so when that was filed, unbeknownst to us that this is what would happen, because it involved a principal, it was immediately bumped up to a level 2 grievance, which goes to the superintendent or an assistant superintendent.
Oh, that's interesting. So, yeah, okay.
So, like, in a
So you
way, I
basically
think I was thinking we were going to be dealing with the principal and that we were going to have.
notwithstanding that, if you actually just look at the grievance that we filed, it really says we want the principal, we want the substitute teacher, and we want the homeroom teacher to all apologize to our daughter. We're not asking for any money. We're not asking for anything outside. We're not asking for anything public. We are simply, and we actually wanted them to acknowledge that what they did to our daughter was actually diluted what true racism is. Like, my friends who experienced true racism, this was not it. And I had enough conversations with them to understand that this is actually like crazy town. And so all we were really asking for was an apology. That's it.
And what happens next?
So, file level 1, immediately they bring on outside counsel from another city. So
The school does.
Yep, our district
How did-
within
okay,
hours.
I'm sorry to jump in, but okay, so they bring out, how did you know that? Like, what
So
happens?
we are on all of the emails. Our attorney basically takes over all communication. He sends an email one morning. Within 3 hours, the in-house counsel for our district replies, CCing outside counsel. And so, of course, I immediately Google his name. He's from another city in Texas. And I actually, at that day, I actually was kind of relieved. I read to Jay that night. I said, oh, listen, this guy actually is a mediator between districts. He doesn't, his main job is to not let things escalate to lawsuits. I was like, he's going to bring the temperature down no matter what, because he's a calm guy. Like, he's here to be a soothing balm to everyone, which was a joke at the end.
Yeah.
But so immediately, in-house counsel CC's outside counsel for the district, CC's our attorney, and says this is immediately bumped up to a level 2 grievance because it involves a principal. So our attorney basically says, okay, so next what will happen is they'll reach out to us, they'll do some kind of a meeting, and we'll take it from there.
And just real quick, when you filed this first thing that you thought was going to hopefully just bring you to the table with the principal, did you have the lawyer involved in that filing process?
Yes.
So the school is getting stuff from you guys from a lawyer.
Right.
Okay.
Which, yeah, I mean, and some people are going to criticize that, and I understand that, and that's your prerogative. I will tell you this. One of the biggest lessons I've learned through all of this is there is no way we could have done this without an attorney tracking all of the deadlines and looking through all of the codes of what was appropriate and what wasn't appropriate. And if it had fallen on our shoulders to do this, like it's the system is basically rigged to make it very difficult for normal families that have problems to make movements like this of saying this isn't right. I've spoken with a few other families that are transfers into our districts, and they're like, there's no way. We don't like this either, and this happened to our kid. There is no way we would file a grievance because they could kick us out of the district. So there's a lot of, I mean, they've got all their attorneys, they've got all their taxpayer money.
The other thing is there, in the 2021 Texas State Legislature, they basically passed a bill that basically said that teachers cannot compel speech of kids. Well, this was, not only was it compelled speech for the fact that the principal went over with our daughter a few times after she said, okay, how are you going to apologize?
Right.
And she made her basically, okay, say that again. How are you going to apologize? So that's compelled speech as well as the letter that was written. And so what we didn't want to do is, if there was an opportunity to basically say, hey, look, let's honor what the 2021 state legislature had, and let's honor that, and let's do it for the rest of the children that are out there too. So we didn't want to do something that was actually going to also ruin that opportunity, and because we hadn't been through this process before.
So you are now in a posture of the lawyers, and it's the whole machine is turning now. So what happens next?
So the attorney set up a day for us to have like a video conference for a level 2 grievance, where the outside counsel for the district, the assistant superintendent is on the Zoom. We are on the Zoom at the house, and our attorney is on the Zoom. And he basically, had said, I can go over all of this with you. I have everything written down. Just, you're going to be asked to announce who you are, and then let me take over. And so literally it was 30 minutes. He was able to state his case. I feel like it was a very curt, all right, thank you, click, hang up. It was over. When it was all said and done, we looked at each other, and that goes off. And so now it is in the assistant super's hand to do her investigation. And so there's a 10-day period where she needs to get her investigation in, and she needs to respond to us. And so we kind of are just going about our business, which I will say that was another thing that was helpful for us during this, was having someone that would kind of do all of the worrying and the thinking and the watching. And that was nice for us, at least. And it is a luxury, and not a lot of families are going to be able to do that. And we get the level 2 response. And it basically is from the assistant saying she has done a full investigation. She has gone to the 3 adult women in question, and she has interviewed them. Their story is nothing like our daughter's. There were so many teachable moments in all of this from their perspective. And she basically says, no one will be apologizing. We will grant that nothing in your daughter's record of our school district has anything to do with her being racist. So that's granted. The principal will not apologize. The teacher will not apologize. And the substitute doesn't even need to apologize, because she's decided to leave the district and move away.
Okay.
So
there's like multiple layers of like inhumanity going on here, because first of all, and I've had experience, I pulled my son from one of his schools for situations I wasn't comfortable with, but it was a small private school here, and I went and talked to the principal, explained what I wasn't comfortable with. We actually went out to breakfast the next day. Nice guy, but I was like, nice guy, well-intended, difference of values, difference in vision and values, and I'm not going to butt heads with this guy, and they're going to run the school the way they're going to run it, but my son's not going to be part of it.
Yeah.
Private school, small private school, so less layers of bureaucracy.
Right.
What happens next? So this is all like,
so
it's all now contentious.
It's contentious.
And posturing and heels digging in.
So, and I want to say that, like, at this point, we are not going after our daughter to repeat the story. She would ask every now and then what's going on, and we would say, the attorney is handling it. It's fine. So at some point when the level 2 response comes back, I did feel like I needed to sit down with her and say, this is what the adults said happened. And so I kind of like read a few things and I said, this is what they're saying happened. And she basically looked at me and she goes, they're calling me a liar. And I said, they're definitely saying that is not what happened. I said, I also think it's fascinating you've gone to the 3 people that are accused of doing something to a minor child, and yet you have not even gone looking for the 18 to 20 kids that were in class each day that it happened. And at this point, school's out.
Yeah, or her friend who was also...
Yeah, I mean...
So they didn't talk to her buddy?
No,
There were several.
There were several families that were calling us about it. Their kids were talking about it around the dinner table. Dads that I'm not, that friendly with, coming up and going, what's happening? I can't believe this is happening. The dad that had provided the camo stick, furious, because he's like, it was my kid that brought it in. This is crazy. And so we basically emailed back and forth with the attorney, and I said, there's no mention of her iPad being taken away. There's no mention of saying her name in front of the whole class. There is no mention of checking in with all of the students that witnessed over the course of 3 days what happened. It's like Pollyannaville. This is crazy. So we then move to level 3. And so what happens is you have like a 10-day timeline where you have to respond and then send a filing to the board. So your school district's board of trustees. And so our attorney sends that.
And this was the thing you were running to be a part of, right?
This is what I was running to be a part of.
So you're set up for success with this.
That's at this point in time, I'm thinking, thank God for unanswered prayers.
So, and we basically reached out to the attorney before he sent it, because we got to read everything before he would file it. We were able to go back and, ask certain detailed questions to our daughter and then, correct and say, oh, actually that was not the right word for this. It was this. And so he basically says, this was not a complete investigation. No one has spoken to any of the children that were in the room and witnessed what happened, which they all were aware of it because they were all abuzz at recess and at lunch every day. Did you see that? They're talking about you. They were pointing you. I mean, it was just a mess.
3 of whom at the board meeting were there basically to support our daughter.
Yeah. So
their parents as well as the children.
Yeah. When you go to level 3, you file it. And then you appear in front of the board. You are allowed to speak for 3 minutes to state your case to the board in a private closed session. So that was fascinating too. Nobody else in the district knows what's going on because it's all happening behind closed doors. And so...
Well, which in some way you can understand because it's keeping it from becoming a big public thing. Right. So I'm actually happy to hear that, actually.
So we talked to the attorney and he's like, I need the 2 of you, your daughter... I will speak for the 3 minutes that I'm allotted. And I said, the board needs to see these other kids. You wrote in there that there are other kids that want to speak about what happened. Can we bring those kids and their families? So we had 3 of her friends that were in class all 3 days. We had their parents. We all go appear in front of the board. And in that moment, that's when our attorney did request that out of the 7 board members, that the 1 board member that ran with Jay for the board seat, please recuse themselves. You've got 6 people. You don't need the 7th. So we leave, and
But did she recuse herself?
No.
No, because when she was running to retain her seat, she made the comment that she is the Tom Brady of school boards. And so, because she's been there for 21 years. And little did she know at that time, Tom Brady had actually retired. But there is a time to retire. But no, I think the ego kind of took over.
This is one of these things I've noticed, even from volunteering at the local level, which is people like to beat up on getting paid and money and oh, that's greed, and so if you're getting paid for something, that means it's compromised. But what I have found, not in every single case, but like quite a bit, when there's an unpaid position, there is still pay. It's just pay of a different kind. And the pay that's of a different kind is kind of worse than getting money.
Oh, yeah.
It's pride. It's power over others.
Yeah, it's very much a power. Like, I will say that at that point, my experience was, we're bringing all of these kids. As crazy as this whole situation has been, all these people at the board, the superintendent, the assistant, all of these attorneys that are sitting there, they're going to see that we brought all these kids. These are the real witnesses here. So I'm going into that level 3 board meeting and I'm thinking, oh, it's finally about to be over, in a way where someone will apologize. And at this point, we didn't even care if it was the teachers or the principal. Someone needed to say to our daughter, listen, this wasn't right, what happened to you. And Jay and our attorney are like, Kelly, no, that's not going to happen. This isn't going to go the way that you want. Like, they were very solid in that this was not going to go this way. And so I will say that an hour later, when the attorney reached out to us and said that it had not gone the way I expected, I literally just I couldn't even talk about it for a week.
So what happened? What happened exactly? That you make your case for 3 minutes, you're asking for an apology?
And they voted 7-0 against making it right with our kid.
So they just wouldn't apologize.
Wouldn't apologize.
Wouldn't apologize.
Ultimately, I even tried to back channel at that point in time and say, look, just say, hey, I'm sorry this happened to you.
And it could have been in private.
Yeah.
We were not asking for some huge public apology.
Yeah.
If there had been an apology, it still would have been behind closed doors.
So here's a question. Is there any piece of their response that is cover your rear end legalese? Like, if we apologize, we're admitting we did something wrong that might make the school district subject to some kind of future litigation? Is that... I'm not saying that's like great.
I mean, it could be, because we have been told by multiple attorneys that we could still file defamation suits, civil suits. I mean, everybody can sue anybody for anything at this point. So I would say that your question of would they not acknowledge any of this to cover their own butts? Yeah, sure, I guess. I think that at some point you also just do the right thing.
So we're here sitting because you want to share this story with people and let people know. But why not move on now? Like, why do you feel like this is important to put out there in the world?
Because it happened to our daughter. And if it happened to our daughter here in the state of Texas, it could happen to anyone. And that is ultimately that is an injustice. And I think the idea of the criticism of calling an 11-year-old girl that she was being racist when she wasn't, and also not calling us on such a amped up sort of subject as that, to not actually bring us in to tell us about it, I think that if they're not going to address it at the district level, then we want to make parents aware that they need to stand up for their children. When you turn your child over to the public school district, it is now, and as far as they're concerned, it's their child. Well, as a parent, ultimately, we are the ones that are sending our kids into that environment. And so I want our daughter to know that we are going to stand up for her no matter what. But I also want other parents to be able to get out there and actually be brave enough to stand up and say, we have to stop this.
What should we do as parents in these situations, beyond this? Because one of the things that I'm hearing, frankly, is a kind of hopeless process, actually. Like a process in which
hopeless.
Like you have this sure, she can shrug it off. But she's a little girl, and the adult authorities are calling her like this the worst thing you can be called. Or at least saying, well, you're not, but you have to apologize as if you are. So they're sending mixed messages, if nothing else, to be as charitable as possible. And then won't call you guys to talk about it, which is completely weird. And
In
then,
fact, they blamed us for
us not calling them.
For us not calling them. They blamed us for not calling them.
yeah, so that's strange.
That's when I knew, the outside counsel actually isn't as good at what I thought he was good at. Because when I read that, I go, well, that's not what I thought he was going to do regarding calming the situation down.
I did read some. I read some of the back and forth because you'd shared some of these documents. There is a couple moments where you take some jabs in that material. You call them like a social. You say that I think the term like social justice warrior substitute. That's poking the bear a little bit, isn't it? Isn't that a little like fighting words?
I think that probably came from some of her public social media posts over the last 2 years, and some activism things that we were made aware of from people that follow her in the district. And so, I don't want to get too detailed into that, but I would say that I think that if you're looking for kids to do something, you're going to find it.
So you stand by that as a description of something like this is a fact, like, or this is likely a contributing factor as opposed to charged language. Because you could say like, hey, if you want to try to get the principal to play ball and whatnot.
I would say the things that I was forwarded on social media, that this person very much had a message that they wanted to get out.
There were also, in the retort back from their attorney, they actually suggested that this was a political social justice warrior on the other side.
Yeah.
You're MAGA people.
Yeah,
trying to
yes.
Yeah.
This was.
We were also
We
woke versus MAGA.
We had an agenda, and we had some agenda that was a deeper agenda. My agenda was just to get an apology, keep it quiet at the time, and do it that way. Well, they don't want, like what we realized, again, I realized, okay, well, that is this legal route that we're going. This is a failed route to go. It's a great way to spend a lot of money.
So,
Which many people, most people don't have that money. And I was not willing to just start throwing money into an investment on this where I didn't really think all I was looking for was an apology. So ultimately, that's one of the reasons why I'd say we're here.
And I had forwarded our attorney some of the things that were sent to me. Once this person's name got out, I was kind of inundated with lots of information.
And you're talking about the substitute teacher
Yes.
that left the district.
Yes. And I forwarded it to the attorney, and I said, I've never even actually met this person, but this person has a little bit of a history. This is what I'm being forwarded. And what he said, what was funny is when the level 2 responses all came back, he goes, the best thing that ever happened to this district is that sub moved away. He goes, they're glad she's gone.
You guys are well off enough that you can hire an attorney. And without saying where the district is, you're in a district that's regarded as one of the best in Texas. And because of the way our public school system works, that tends to be the wealthier neighborhoods. Why not just put your kids in private school? Why put yourself through this government bureaucratic
I think that's a great question.
prison?
And I think, yeah. Well, so our kids we've got 3 kids. Our oldest has been public, then private, and then back to public because he wanted to play sports. And the private school that was awesome, that we loved, just wasn't the right place for him. And he was old enough, we wanted him to make a choice.
Okay.
Our daughter in question basically had done public, private for a year and a half, back to public. And then our youngest, public. And then she actually asked to leave the school after all of this happened. She felt like all the grown-ups stare at me. They say my name every time I walk down the hallway. And I said, I think they're trying to make you comfortable after everything that happened, and they don't want any problems. But she left, and I'm homeschooling her now. And just a funny side note, at one point, the youngest, back in October, got clotheslined on the playground by one of the other little second grade boys, and they were all playing chase and everything. And let me tell you this, for a school that did not think it was important to call two parents because their daughter had been accused of blackface, this little kid had to write our youngest an apology letter. The principal caught me in the car rider line. The nurse called me and left me a message. Like, it was, 5-alarm fire. Right. It was very interesting to all of a sudden see the swing in communication that started happening.
One could wonder if it might have to do with being worried about legal liability.
Exactly. And so,
which is actually a shame that it even has to come to that.
Far, right. Yeah. But I mean, I think you're right. For us as parents, what we've done with our kids, and you're right. Like, if we really wanted to put our child in public or private school, we can. But we also are very child-led, and each of our 3 kids are their own individual person. We want to listen to what they would like to do. We also look at what's their learning style, and so we're very flexible. I think that
That's great.
Of the controversial things that people might be all up in arms about right now is this child that we're talking about that had this happen in 5th grade. One of the very first things she said after it all happened was, oh my gosh, did they ruin it to where now I can't go to 6th grade with all of my friends? And a lot of our friends were horrified we didn't yank her out of the district and put her in a private school. In between all of these things happening, she had a medical condition she was diagnosed with. There was a lot happening. And I looked at her and I said, where do you want to be for the first day of school? Where do you think you'll be the most comfortable? And she said, with my friends. And
Let me bring her in here. So why? You didn't feel like this whole rigmarole ruined it for you?
I don't know. I just like have always like known a lot of people that have gone to like the school I used to went to, and like how I still stayed in contact. I felt like it would be still like they would still be my friends, and I just felt like I would be the most comfortable with all of them.
And she said that when we spoke earlier that she's having a good time so far.
Yeah, and let me say this about this district. You can have a bad thing happen and it not be an entire picture of an entire district. We have had some lovely teachers. We have had some lovely interactions with lots of people within this district. This is an isolated event. And when we moved her over to the middle school, the new principal that we engage with now basically said, we want her to have a fresh start, and we would like to ask you that you would allow us to have a fresh start. And I will say that I felt very comfortable with that. Is this where she's going to stay for the rest of her school career? I don't know that, because we do kind of look at kids as they're growing up and what do they need. But right now, if she's comfortable, given everything that she's gone through, and we feel like she's safe there, I think that we're okay with that for right now.
I can't argue with that. I think it is funny. I talk to my son about this all the time because I've moved him around. I talk about it on the show and on the channel a bunch. So I've moved him around all these different schools, and he pushes back and says, Pop, there's like a bunch of my friends who like the public school. They like chose to go. They went to the wacky tiny schools that I've sent my son to, and then they're like, no, they want to do basketball, or they just want to be in a bigger environment. And it's I just wish everybody had the choice that those of us that have the means to choose.
Yes, 100%. And that was something that even my dad said. He said, you can get lost in the details of what happened to your daughter, but he goes, to me, the biggest thing is how difficult this process was that any other family would have to go through with all of these level grievances and having to do it on their own. And, it just.
And I think life itself is, as Nick Saban would say, is a journey. And that journey involves sacrifice. The journey also will involve like tough times that you have to overcome. And it kind of tests your character. And I think if for nothing else, our daughter coming up and being able to kind of look past some of these things with the understanding that the reason why we are doing this to begin with is so that this does not happen to other little girls and boys out there who might be in the same situation. And I think when you can overcome things like that, not to say we want to invite trouble into our lives, absolutely not. But when you are faced with things that are out of your control that you can overcome, then it only makes you stronger. It only makes you a better person. And I've already been able to see that just with her and her ability to just overcome some of this negativity and turn it into a positive experience.
As we wrap things up, do you feel like this has been worth it? You're getting out there into the public now, so that's obviously part of this process. But do you feel like that goal is achievable? That doing what you're doing to share this story will have that positive impact, and how and why?
I would say that I think that when we're talking about it together as a couple, he's always more sure of it and very, like, you can probably just tell. I have a lot of back and forth of questioning, and is it right? And, how does it feel day to day of what we're doing? And I'm glad that we are where we are. I think it needed to be said. I think that in a way, the longer we kept waiting, because this all ended, I want to say, in September. And so, here we are now in February. This wasn't just like run around and start screaming about this and blow it all up.
Yeah.
We've been very thoughtful. We've talked a lot as a couple. We've thought a lot about it as individuals. We've talked about it with the kids.
We've prayed a lot
about it. I felt like we needed to say something.
Well, and I do feel like the big picture in all this is this DEI philosophy. And the school district in question has a very public embrace of that. And they have a whole website about it. And I've got, like, for example, just from that website, there's a part where it says, like, developing racial awareness is an initial step to deepening understanding of equity and how it can be used to improve access and increase belongingness of all students. So this is like the first paragraph of paragraphs and paragraphs of this sort of critical theory, college woke buzzword salad that permeates the school's information and messaging. And I continually am reminded of the blue eyes, brown eyes experiments, which were separating the kids on the basis of an arbitrary characteristic, blue eyes and brown eyes. And this is one of the most like replicatable study, like experiments you can do. And when you divide kids up based on arbitrary categories, it turns out they turn on each other, and it's divisive, and it creates tension and strife, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
And that's what you teach them. And so this notion that we need to develop racial awareness, there's a positive way to read into that, which is to know our history and know that human nature has these things about us that are tribal and not great, and we need to overcome those things. But this bigger picture is not really what that's about. It's about leaning into those differences and about labeling everything you can put your finger on and creating all these buzzwords about equity and inclusion and belongingness. Is that part of what you're trying to draw attention to, is that there's this philosophy that's in our school system now that's making these kinds of things happen?
I would say that, with that being so strong in our specific district, that of course something like this was going to happen, and that, maybe it happened to our family because we were some of the only people that would come and say, hey, this happened. And I wonder if it happened to our child. Has it happened to other children in our district? It's kind of goes back to when I was speaking with the attorney that very first day before we ever even hired him. And he was like, oh, I've been waiting for this. And I think it leads to that, what you just read, is that when you put that out there and that's your main focus, you're looking for it.
It seems like it's been written by somebody who has never actually engaged with people of other cultures and other races, and like what you do to actually just have a human relationship with another person. And ultimately you put yourself in a room with another person of a different skin color or a different culture, and you just go organically and find the commonalities, and then find the things that actually bother both people, but treat them as individual people. And I think that this basically, like the blue eyes and brown eyes experiment, it does divide. And personally, if I hadn't had so many good relationships with some of my African American brothers, I might not be as bold to stand here or sit here and actually have this conversation. But I think that we're being very genuine about our relationships, and the importance of treating everyone like a real person.
I ask this of every guest on the show. It's how I like to end, because we're Dad Saves America, and the reason for that title is because I do believe that we as parents and for men as dads play this essential role, this heroic role in raising our kids to thrive in a free society and hopefully want to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you each see your role in that American story? You're putting your story out there. I'll start with you, Jay.
So, I mean, I think it's so interesting and cool that you're doing this show to begin with, because all of the statistics lay out that not only do you need a father figure, but generally speaking, you actually need to have two. Well, if you don't have a father that is in the life of your child, then it's going to be that much harder to have two father figures that are there. And that other father figure can be a teacher and can be a coach. But we as fathers, we understand that we bring a certain energy to the equation, whether it's with our sons or whether it's with our daughters. And there is a difference between what we bring and what their mother brings. And they're both extremely important, but this seems to be an age in which the father is being lost. And I think that by coming and standing up for our daughter, that is very important to me as a father, to let her know that I back her and support her, especially after not gonna support every wrong thing that she does, but this after doing serious due diligence, there was nothing wrong here, and so we have to go back and support her, and that's what I want to do.
How about you?
I would say part of why I'm sitting here today is we need to remember that kids are kids. And I think that something's gotten lost somewhere in, I don't even know when it started, but something has gotten lost, that our expectations of what they are able to process at certain ages, it's too much. And, when you look at a child, like they looked at mine, and you say, I know you didn't intend to be racist, but what you did was racist, that sends a message that is full of shame and self-hatred and embarrassment and confusion. And I think that, we all need to take a step back in America and remember, like, what it means to just watch a child play. come upon things on their own without all of this constant teaching things that they are not developmentally ready to process or accuse them of those things. That's kind of where I am. Like, let's just get back to letting kids be kids.
Yeah, it feels like we've lost what it means to be a kid, and we've lost what it means to be an adult.
Yeah, like that's it too. You can go be an activist in whatever you want to be active in. That's the beauty of America. We all get to have our own opinions, our own ways of expressing ourselves. But at the same time, it is not your job to go put all of that on these little people that just need to learn how to spell correctly and write a paragraph appropriately. You know, like, yeah, I agree.
It's like that show that we may have all grown up with where it said kids are people too. You know, at some level, if you actually listen to the kids, in many cases, they're the ones that are teaching us. We think we're here to go teach them. They're teaching us. And that is, I mean, I cannot tell you how much I've changed from having kids and realizing they teach us so much. And this is a scenario in which let's listen to the kids every once in a while.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for being on Dad Saves America.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This was great.